Listen, sometimes it's okay to be the villain in the made-up story that these people got going on in their mind. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm okay. I'm okay that in your story, I'm the villain. Because you the clown in mine. A whole clown.
Right now at 5, a Charlotte man is facing murder charges after a woman was found shot several times at a cookout restaurant over the weekend. Police announced Malek Crosby's arrest today. He's facing first-degree murder charges. Jaselyn Horne died at the restaurant on Sunset Road early Sunday morning. Investigators say she was shot several times. Right now, it's still unclear exactly what led up to the shooting. We'll continue to monitor this story, and we'll update you once we learn more.
Shortly before 5 a.m. on March 17, 2024, emergency dispatchers in Charlotte, North Carolina, received report of gunfire at the Cookout restaurant on Sunset Road. Responding officers from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department located 26-year-old employee Jaselyn Horne inside the building with multiple gunshot wounds. Paramedics confirmed she was deceased at the scene. Preliminary information from CMPD indicated that Horne and the suspect, identified as Malek Crosby, were co-workers assigned to the same overnight shift. Within hours, investigators named Crosby as the primary person of interest and later took him into custody. Official records classified the case as a homicide handled by the CMPD Homicide Unit, with formal charges later filed through Mecklenburg County. In the months that followed, court documents and public statements outlined the investigative steps, legal actions, and procedural developments that expanded the public's understanding of how the incident unfolded and how authorities addressed the aftermath. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. At the time of her death, Jaselyn Horne was a 26-year-old resident of Charlotte, North Carolina. She lived in the community surrounding the Sunset Road corridor, an area with a mixture of residential homes, commercial businesses, and several late-night food establishments. She was a mother of a young son who was dependent on her as his primary caregiver. Public records and social media posts show that her family unit consisted of close relatives and a network of friends who interacted with her regularly. Co-workers describe her as active within the workplace community, participating in shift responsibilities, and maintaining regular interactions with team members on her assigned schedules. Horne was employed at the Cookout restaurant located on Sunset Road. Her role involved standard fast food operational duties, including taking customer orders, preparing food items, maintaining the cleanliness of the workstations, and participating in closing procedures. She had been working there for several months prior to March 2024 and had developed a routine familiarity with the restaurant's workflow and employee expectations. Closing shift responsibilities typically required employees to conduct end-of-day cleaning, restocking, equipment shutdown, and securing the premises. Her interactions with co-workers were consistent with the requirements of her job. She worked with rotating teams depending on scheduling, and she had established working familiarity with employees assigned to similar hours. Reports indicate no broad history of serious conflict, but acknowledge that disagreements occasionally occurred, as is common in fast-paced food service environments. These included routine disagreements about cleaning duties, workload distribution, and shift responsibilities. Horne's routine centered around her scheduled shifts, which frequently included late night and early morning hours due to Cookout's operating times. She was considered reliable in attendance and punctuality. Her daily routine involved preparing for work, arranging childcare, and traveling to and from the Sunset Road location, most likely using personal transportation or rideshare options depending on availability. Her lifestyle reflected consistent engagement with her local community, maintaining social connections with friends and co-workers while managing her parental responsibilities. There is no documented involvement in high-risk behavior or environments unrelated to her workplace. The Cookout restaurant where the incident occurred is located along Sunset Road in northwest Charlotte. It is a high-traffic location due to its proximity to residential neighborhoods and major roadways. The restaurant operates long hours and is known for serving customers late into the night and early morning, making overnight and closing shifts a standard part of its staffing structure. The physical layout includes a main customer lobby, a drive-through area, a compact kitchen behind the counter, multiple cooking stations, storage rooms, a walk-in refrigerator and freezer, and a backdoor exit leading to the parking lot. Exterior features include lighting fixtures, a parking area shared by employees and customers, and standard commercial property security measures. There were no specialized security systems such as metal detectors or dedicated on-site security personnel. Closing shifts typically staffed a small number of employees, including a shift manager, cooks, and crew members responsible for cleaning and finalizing operations. Management structure followed a common fast food hierarchy: general manager, assistant managers, and shift supervisors. Employees on closing shifts often face time pressure due to the need to complete multiple tasks before final lockup. Stress points reported within similar environments include heavy cleaning responsibilities, fatigue from late-night hours, interpersonal disagreements over task distribution, and limited managerial oversight during the busiest or latest periods. Employees were expected to complete all assigned tasks cooperatively, and disputes sometimes arose when work was perceived as unevenly distributed. There were no public records indicating the use of metal detectors or weapon screening tools at the restaurant. This meant that employees and customers entered without controlled screening, which is typical for establishments of this type. There is no public record of major prior workplace violence incidents at the specific location. However, as reported by employees and witnesses in this case, workplace tensions did arise. In the period leading up to March 2024, minor disagreements occurred between staff members, including between Horne and the suspect, though none had previously escalated into physical violence. Employees noted occasional arguments related to workloads or cleaning duties. No formal safety complaints were documented that directly predicted or foreshadowed the events of the incident. The suspect in the case, identified as 20-year-old Malek Crosby, was also an employee of the same cookout restaurant. He worked the same shift on the morning of the incident and had been employed there for a period shorter than Horne, though exact duration varies in available records. Crosby performed similar duties, which included food preparation, cleaning tasks, and station maintenance. His age and employment position placed him in close proximity to Horne during shared shifts. Witness accounts from coworkers indicate that Crosby's behavior during the shift leading up to the incident appeared tense. Employees reported that he had been engaged in a disagreement with Horne earlier that morning. The conflict reportedly centered around cleaning responsibilities, specifically tasks assigned during the restaurant's closing process. Statements indicate that verbal exchanges escalated in intensity prior to the shooting. Co-workers recalled that Crosby seemed visibly frustrated during the shift. Some employees described prior minor disagreements between Crosby and other staff members, but did not report any incidents of past violence. Testimonies indicate that immediately before the incident, his movements and tone reflected irritation, though no employees anticipated a fatal escalation. On the night of the incident, witnesses documented a direct conflict between Crosby and Horne. The argument intensified shortly before the moment gunfire occurred. Surveillance footage and witness accounts later confirmed that the dispute escalated rapidly. Publicly available information about Crosby's background is limited. He is confirmed to be a resident of Charlotte, North Carolina, with employment history tied to the Sunset Road cookout location. No additional personal background details beyond those released through official reports are included here, as this account avoids speculation and adheres strictly to verified information. In the weeks leading up to March 17, 2024, both the victim, 26-year-old Jaselyn Horne, and the suspect, 20-year-old Malek Crosby, were routinely scheduled on overlapping shifts at the cookout restaurant located on Sunset Road in Charlotte, North Carolina. According to employee schedules reviewed by management, it was common for both individuals to work late night and early morning hours. Their shifts frequently fell during the same closing windows, where the staff was reduced and employees operated in smaller teams. This pattern placed them in repeated proximity, particularly during end-of-shift tasks. During the previous weeks, there were no documented formal workplace complaints filed by either Horne or Crosby. However, Coworkers later informed investigators that the two had occasional disagreements over cleaning assignments and pace of work. These interactions were described by witnesses as routine workplace disagreements that did not escalate to physical confrontations before the date of the incident. Still, staff members noted that these disputes tended to occur during periods of increased workload, especially during the early morning cleaning cycle. On March 16 to 17, 2024, Horne and Crosby were again placed on the same shift. Employees arrived throughout the late-night period to begin the overnight operations. The restaurant maintained steady activity until early morning. Horne and Crosby took part in typical responsibilities, including order preparation, customer interaction, and maintenance of kitchen operations. Supervisors reported nothing unusual during the busiest hours of the shift. As business slowed after 3 a.m., the staff began transitioning into the closing phase. This period involved structured cleaning assignments divided among the employees. Tasks included wiping down equipment, restocking materials, handling waste disposal, and preparing the kitchen for the next day. During this phase, management divided workers into small teams to improve efficiency. Both Horne and Crosby were assigned to tasks requiring cooperation within close range of each other. Witnesses later described that the argument between Horne and Crosby began shortly before 5 a.m. The dispute reportedly centered around cleaning responsibilities. Statements from employees indicated differing accounts of who was responsible for completing certain tasks near the grill and prep areas. As the disagreement continued, co-workers noted an increase in tension between the two. According to witness accounts, the verbal exchange escalated. Both individuals raised their voices as other staff members began stepping away from the immediate area. The manager on duty was aware of the argument and attempted to verbally intervene from a distance, instructing both individuals to complete their assigned duties and separate. The manager then resumed finalizing paperwork, while remaining aware that the exchange had not fully de-escalated. At approximately 4:50 to 5 a.m., the confrontation reached its peak inside the restaurant. The exact location of the shooting was identified as a kitchen or prep area, where both employees had been performing closing duties. According to surveillance footage later reviewed by detectives, the dispute continued as physical space between the two narrowed. The sequence of actions leading to a weapon being drawn occurred quickly, with no extended physical altercation reported in official documents beyond the verbal exchange, and a thrown object referenced during later court proceedings. The suspect, Crosby, produced a firearm during this escalation. Multiple shots were fired. Emergency reports later described several gunshots being heard by employees who had moved toward the lobby or exterior during the rising tension. Horne was struck and collapsed in the kitchen area. Her position near the workstations matched the location where paramedics would later find her. Co-workers reacted by fleeing toward the building exits. Some hid in nearby areas, while others ran into the parking lot. One employee called the manager, who then moved to a safer area within the building and placed a 911 call. The 911 call, documented later by investigators, included the manager's urgent request for assistance, reporting that an employee had been shot and that the shooter had left the immediate area. The caller indicated that they could not reach the victim due to fear of the suspect returning and due to uncertainty regarding whether the shooter was still inside the building. Within minutes after the shots were fired, employees exited the building in groups. The suspect had already fled the restaurant premises before law enforcement arrived. Several employees remained outside, directing responding units to the location of the shooting. First responders from Medic and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department arrived shortly after dispatch. Paramedics entered once officers secured the immediate entry point. Horne was found unresponsive and pronounced dead at the scene. The initial dispatch was classified as a shooting with a victim down. The 911 caller provided information, including the number of shots heard, the victim's condition, and the identity of the suspected shooter. The urgency of the caller contributed to rapid deployment of patrol officers. Upon arrival, CMPD officers established a perimeter around the restaurant. Their first task was to determine whether the suspect remained inside the building. Once the interior was cleared, officers allowed medical personnel to proceed. The victim's identity was confirmed by co-workers and the manager, and paramedics documented the fatal injuries consistent with gunshot wounds. Officers then began the evidence collection process. Shell casings were recovered from the scene in locations matching the surveillance footage timeline. The position of the victim's body and the surrounding environment were photographed and logged for forensic analysis. Investigators also secured surveillance footage from the restaurant's internal camera system, which documented the escalation leading up to the shooting. Detectives conducted immediate interviews with employees who had fled the building. Witnesses provided consistent descriptions of the dispute over cleaning responsibilities, the rising tension, the escalation of the verbal argument, and the moment gunfire erupted. Employees also confirmed the suspect's identity, enabling police to issue a bolo, be on the lookout, alert within hours. The surveillance footage further corroborated these accounts, establishing a clear sequence of events leading to the fatal shooting. By the end of the initial investigative phase, police had secured evidence, confirmed the suspect, and initiated search efforts that would lead to his arrest the following day. Following the shooting at the Cookout restaurant on Sunset Road in Charlotte on March 17, 2024, law enforcement initiated an immediate search for the individual responsible. As officers interviewed employees and reviewed the initial evidence, the name of the suspected shooter surfaced within minutes. Multiple coworkers identified 20-year-old Malek Crosby as the individual who fired the shots that killed 26-year-old Jaselyn Horne. Their statements placed Crosby at the scene during the confrontation and confirmed he left immediately afterward. Surveillance footage taken from inside and outside the restaurant provided further verification. Video captured Crosby's presence during the shift, showing him entering and moving through employee-only areas where the conflict later unfolded. Although the exact footage details were not publicly released, investigators stated that the recordings confirmed the sequence of events described by witnesses. Based on these findings, CMPD issued an official statement publicly identifying Crosby as the suspect and notifying the community that he was wanted in connection with the homicide. The search for Crosby continued through the night. By the following day, March 18, 2024, officers located him at a residence in Charlotte. The arrest involved coordination between multiple units, including homicide detectives, patrol officers, and support personnel tasked with containment and surveillance. Officers approached the location during daylight hours and executed the arrest without reported incident. Crosby was taken into custody and transported to the Mecklenburg County Jail for booking. He was processed on a charge of murder, which reflected the initial findings that the shooting occurred during an ongoing workplace dispute. No bond information was released publicly at the time of his booking. Family reactions were limited to factual statements given to local media, describing their awareness of the incident and confirming their cooperation with investigators. Horne's family provided information regarding her employment and recent activity, while Crosby's family acknowledged the charges filed against him without offering interpretations or emotional commentary. Crime scene technicians collected physical evidence from within the Cookout building immediately after securing the scene. Several shell casings were recovered from the area where the shooting took place. Their placement helped investigators determine the shooter's position and direction of fire. The victim, identified as Jaselyn Horne, was found inside the restaurant with gunshot wounds consistent with the witness statements and the ballistic evidence. The positioning of her body was documented for trajectory analysis, allowing investigators to match the casing's bullet paths and shot angles to the reported events. Information regarding the firearm type was not officially disclosed to the public. However, the ballistic evidence confirmed multiple rounds had been fired. Gunshot wound analysis indicated that the shots were fired at close range, but no unnecessary detail was released beyond confirming that the wounds were consistent with the cause of death. The autopsy later conducted by the medical examiner confirmed that Horne died from these gunshot injuries. The estimated time of death aligned closely with the police and medical arrival time reported shortly after 5 a.m. Interviews conducted at the scene and later at CMPD headquarters formed a significant portion of the investigative findings. The restaurant manager provided key details, including the verbal dispute between Crosby and Horne during their shift. The manager described hearing raised voices before witnessing the situation escalate. Other employees offered consistent accounts, stating that the argument began over cleaning responsibilities assigned during the closing process. Several workers confirmed that tension escalated rapidly and that they heard or saw the confrontation intensify. Some reported fleeing or hiding when the first gunshot sounded. These interviews collectively established that the shooting followed a verbal conflict that turned physical. The uniformity of employees' statements strengthened the case file and supported the timeline later presented in court. Investigators reviewed digital surveillance from cameras positioned throughout the restaurant. The footage documented the movements of both Horne and Crosby in the period leading up to the shooting. Timestamps on the recordings corroborated employee statements, showing both individuals performing job duties and entering the area where the dispute occurred. Although not all footage was publicly released, law enforcement confirmed that it was used as part of the evidence package reviewed by prosecutors. The video material helped establish the sequence of interactions, the direction of movement, and the timing of Crosby's departure from the restaurant immediately after the shooting. The autopsy conducted by the Mecklenburg County Medical Examiner confirmed that the cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds. The findings aligned with ballistic evidence collected at the scene and the witness accounts. The report established that Horne died before paramedics arrived, consistent with the timeline reported by CMPD. Following Crosby's arrest, the case entered the court system. A series of initial hearings established the formal charges and ensured legal representation for Crosby. The prosecution evaluated the investigative findings, including witness interviews, surveillance footage, physical evidence, and the autopsy report. Over the month that followed, court records reflect multiple procedural steps: discovery exchanges, evidence review, attorney conferences, and preparation for trial. Crosby eventually entered discussions with the district attorney's office regarding a plea agreement. In October 2024, Crosby agreed to plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter, reducing the original murder charge. During the plea hearing, prosecutors presented a summary of the facts. These included the verbal dispute between Crosby and Horne over cleaning duties, the escalation of the argument, and the physical altercation that reportedly involved an object being thrown before the shooting occurred. The court accepted the plea on the grounds that the confrontation escalated quickly and resulted in a fatal outcome during a heated exchange. The factual basis established that Crosby intentionally fired the shots that caused Horne's death, meeting the legal standard for voluntary manslaughter under state law. The judge sentenced Crosby to 51 to 74 months in prison, which falls within the statutory range for voluntary manslaughter. The court also awarded him credit for 221 days previously served in the Mecklenburg County Jail while awaiting trial and resolution. The sentencing order explained the structure of North Carolina sentencing guidelines, noting that the range reflected both the severity of the offense and the defendant's criminal history category. After issuing the sentence, the court formally acknowledged the plea agreement and closed the case. The immediate impact of the incident on the victim's family centered primarily on the effect it had on her young son. With the death of his mother, he was placed in a situation requiring immediate guardianship adjustments. Family members had to determine who would assume responsibility for his daily care, long-term supervision, and emotional stability. This required coordination among relatives, assessment of household capabilities, and consideration of how to maintain continuity in his upbringing. Family members provided statements to local media outlets in the days following the incident. These statements focus on the sudden nature of the event and describe the practical adjustments the family would need to make. They address the need for support in managing child care, household responsibilities, and legal processes. In these media conversations, relatives also emphasize concerns about safety in workplace environments and the circumstances that led to the fatal confrontation. Their statements helped the broader public understand the immediate ramifications a homicide had on the child and the larger family structure. In the long term, the effects on relatives and support networks expanded beyond the initial aftermath. The child required stable guardianship arrangements that would remain consistent throughout his development. Extended family members became responsible for coordinating financial, educational, and logistical support. Relatives also had to prepare for long-term interactions with legal systems, memorial arrangements, and future discussions regarding the circumstances of the death. The incident created an ongoing challenge for family as they adapted to a permanent shift in household responsibilities and support systems. The community response included public discussion about the safety of workplace environments, especially in industries where late-night or early morning shifts are common. Residents expressed concerns about how disputes escalate during high-stress shifts and questioned whether local businesses had adequate training or safety protocols in place to prevent violent incidents. The public dialogue highlighted a need for clearer communication and improved conflict management strategies within establishments operating at late hours. Community members also organized small memorials at the cookout location where the incident occurred. These memorials consisted of candles, flowers, written notes, and personal items placed near the building. They served as a physical acknowledgement of the event and allowed residents to recognize the seriousness of the situation. Local news outlets documented these gatherings, which encouraged further discussion about workplace violence and community safety. Public concerns extended to early morning shift risks, which employees in the fast food industry frequently encounter. Community conversations address factors such as minimal staffing during closing hours, reduced security presence, and increased likelihood of interpersonal conflicts when workers are tired or under pressure. Residents questioned whether businesses operating during these hours were adequately prepared to manage employee disputes or emergencies. This led to broader scrutiny of late-shift staffing models and the responsibilities employers have in maintaining safe working conditions. The incident raised significant questions about conflict management training within the workplace. Observers emphasized a need for structured guidelines instructing employees on how to handle disagreements, de-escalate tensions, and involve supervisors or law enforcement when necessary. The absence of formal training in many fast food establishments contributed to concerns that workers may not be equipped to prevent confrontations from escalating into violence. Questions also arose about how employees were able to bring firearms into the workplace. Community members and workplace safety advocates expressed concern about the lack of screening measures, bag checks, or visible policies restricting weapons on site. This prompted discussions about whether fast food chains should implement stricter safety checks or technological measures, such as surveillance improvements or alarms, to prevent employees from entering with weapons. Additionally, the incident motivated a re-evaluation of restaurant safety protocols. This included reviewing shift management procedures, staff communication methods, and emergency response plans. The review aimed to assess areas where early warning signs or conflicts may have been detected earlier. Managers and corporate representatives were encouraged to consider expanded training programs, clearer reporting structures, and improved oversight of late-night workplace operations. The event highlighted systemic issues prevalent in the fast food industry. Conflicts in these environments often occur due to high workloads, limited staffing, and fast-paced demands. Many establishments lack detailed conflict escalation or de-escalation training, leaving employees without structured guidance for managing disputes. When disagreements arise, especially during closing shifts, staff members may not have the tools needed to resolve them safely. Overnight and early morning shifts pose additional challenges. Workers often deal with fatigue, reduced managerial presence, and limited external support. These factors can create conditions where minor misunderstandings escalate quickly. The absence of specialized training for high-risk time slots increases vulnerability to workplace conflict and potential violence. The case also reflects a broader trend of increasing workplace violence across numerous industries. Nationally, reports indicate a rise in violent incidents involving employees, including disputes between coworkers. Factors contributing to this trend include heightened stress levels, low wages, demanding work environments, and insufficient safety infrastructure. The incident fits into this larger pattern, emphasizing the need for comprehensive industry-wide reform. The legal outcome generated discussion among members of the public regarding the plea deal offered in the case. Initially charged with murder, the defendant later pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter, leading some observers to express concern over perceived reduction in accountability. Others viewed the plea as consistent with legal standards that consider factors such as prior confrontation, escalation, and immediate circumstances surrounding the act. The voluntary manslaughter standards in North Carolina acknowledge situations where a person causes a death in the heat of sudden conflict without premeditation. The plea deal suggests prosecutors determine the available evidence aligned with this legal definition. The outcome prompted analysis of how sudden confrontation, workplace tension, and physical altercations influence the classification of charges. This case also has implications for future workplace violence legal proceedings. It illustrates how prosecutors balance witness accounts, workplace conditions, escalation factors, and evidence when determining charges. It may also influence how defense attorneys frame workplace disputes in similar cases involving sudden confrontations. The legal outcome sets a reference point for how courts may address violent incidents occurring in fast-paced, high-stress employment settings. The case involves a workplace dispute that escalated into a fatal outcome. The confrontation occurred during an early morning closing shift at a fast food restaurant, leading to the death of a 26-year-old employee. Law enforcement responded promptly, secured the scene, and identified a coworker as the primary suspect. A thorough investigation followed, involving witness interviews, forensic analysis, and review of workplace footage. The suspect's arrest and subsequent legal proceedings concluded with a voluntary manslaughter conviction. The case underscores the importance of de-escalation strategies within work environments, especially in industries with high employee turnover and demanding shifts. Employers are encouraged to prioritize conflict management training and cultivate reporting structures that allow workers to address disputes before they intensify. Improved safety protocols, ranging from stricter weapon restrictions to enhanced oversight during late-night shifts, are essential to reducing workplace risks. The incident highlights how gaps in safety procedures and lack of de-escalation training can have severe consequences. The lasting impact on the community, the victim's family, and workplace policy discussions demonstrates how a single incident can influence wider conversations about employee safety, legal outcomes, and industry reform. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.